Hello everyone, I am Ben with the BTC Sessions. I'm here in Kensington, Calgary, Alberta, Canada, and today I would like to bring to you an interview I had with a man by the name of Francis Pouliot. Now Francis is based in Montreal, Canada, so across the country from myself, and today we get into a little bit of his background, how he got started in Bitcoin, and then we get into a heavy focus on the impending implementation of Segwit on the Bitcoin network, followed by the impending fork of something called Bitcoin Cash. Now, one nice thing about Francis that I enjoy is the fact that he doesn't mince words when he starts talking about what he thinks of Bitcoin Cash in the latter part of this interview. So without further ado, please enjoy my interview with Francis Pouliot. I am very excited this morning to have a special guest on. I've been wanting to talk to this gentleman for quite some time. His name is Francis Pouliot. And he is a very established, busy person in the Bitcoin and blockchain space. I'm just going to list a few of the things that he's been involved with. The Bitcoin Embassy, Satoshiportal, the Bitcoin Foundation of Canada, the Ontario Securities Commission, and his most recent project, Catallaxy. I'm very excited to have him on. Francis, can you please give yourself a little introduction and let us know about your journey into the crypto space?
Yeah, thanks, Benny. So you named pretty much the big projects I'm involved in right now. So Satoshiportal, for those who don't know, is the company that operates Bills. Bills is a Bitcoin payment service which allows Canadian Bitcoiners to opt out of the banking system by paying their utility bills and third-party bank accounts directly with Bitcoin. So it's kind of like BitPay, but instead of paying a merchant, you're paying a utility bill or someone else. And Bitcoin Embassy was a project founded in 2013, which is over now, but it lasted for about 4 years. And yeah, my project right now, I'm mostly dedicated on Catallaxy. So my time is on Catallaxy, and my time is also dedicated to Bitcoin, generally speaking. So we'll get into that, but the whole aspect of community coordination is a task that I've given myself, and it takes a lot of my time. So as to the journey, the Bitcoiner's journey, I came from one of the core backgrounds of people who come to Bitcoin. So my story is not unlike many others. I was a libertarian, free market enthusiast, and this is initially the angle which got me interested in Bitcoin. And I have a background in as a student of politics, political science, of economics, of policy analysis, and I had a libertarian awakening in university. I actually remember quite well the moment. It was when Mark Emery got extradited to the US. So the king of pot, which was selling marijuana seeds online, which got extradited to federal prison in the US. And I was living in Europe at the time, and I wasn't really libertarian, but I was really outraged. And I went to protest at the Canadian consulate in Brussels, and I was alone in my protest. When I came back to Montreal after my studies in England, I started working for the Montreal Economic Institute, and I got really involved in the grassroots libertarian movement. Through this libertarian circles, I met a few people that were successful Bitcoiners, right? That hung out in libertarian cafes and that kind of stuff. And one of them had decided to found the Bitcoin Embassy in Montreal. So I started hanging out with the guys at the Bitcoin Embassy. And then about 3 months later, after going to the meetups all the time and hanging out, the founder just told me, you should come work for us. I was like, okay. So I quit my job as an economist, and I started working for the Bitcoin Embassy 2013. So that's how I got into it. And since 2015, at some point, the Bitcoin Embassy's mission was kind of accomplished when we got some pretty favorable regulations for Bitcoin exchanges. We got some pretty favorable reassurances from the government that BitLicenses wasn't going to happen and they were going to take a slow approach. So we decided, okay, so the Bitcoin Embassy's mission is kind of done. So let's focus on getting people actually into Bitcoin and not lobbying. So starting to make products, and we started a physical exchange in Montreal, and I started a few businesses that help people onboard into Bitcoin. I organized a Bitcoin meetup in Montreal, which is awesome, and it's a real Bitcoin meetup. It's not a blockchain meetup. We talk about Segwit, we talk about Lightning, we talk about wallets, we talk about how to split coins, all that kind of stuff. So there was actually a partner of Grant Thornton, Raymond Chabot Grant Thornton, in Montreal, who came to our meetup and was pretty blown away because he knew about Bitcoin, and he was blown away by how much we knew. So for him, we were like the equivalent of Andreas Antonopoulos, right? Vulgarizing this for the common person right in his backyard, and he's like, this is amazing. So he invited us to the Raymond Chabot Grant Thornton offices in Montreal. We said, how about we create a new entity that's co-founded by the entrepreneurs of the Bitcoin community? And I told them, Bitcoin people are entrepreneurs. They're very, very independent. If you want the best, you can't have them as a staff. You need to partner with Bitcoiners. Bitcoiners want to partner. They don't want to be staff. So this was a message that resonated, and this is what led to Catallaxy. So Catallaxy is the result of this joint venture between three entrepreneurs of the Bitcoin community in Quebec. That was announced 2 weeks ago. It's a multi-million-dollar investment in this firm. So we have a lot of resources. This is what we were going for. It's a private company, which is 100% funded so far by private funds and private clients. And we do a lot of stuff. So the main thing that we do is research and development. So my role in this institution as co-founder is responsible for R&D and also for the whole crypto assets part of the business. So handling Bitcoins and handling cryptocurrencies and exchanging and estate planning and all that kind of stuff. The type of client we're looking for are either institutional. For example, financial institutions that are looking at Bitcoin and blockchain. These are some of our clients. We try to tell them what we think they could benefit from it with Bitcoin. And so a lot of supply chain clients are looking for crypto signatures and timestamping. A lot of governments are looking for voting and for transparency of public offerings for contracts and all that kind of stuff. And at the same time, we are also catering to Bitcoin clients. So Bitcoin startups are one of our main clients. So we help them with Grant Thornton is an accounting, audit, fiscal, professional services firm. So we are one of the things that I'm working on right now, for example, is allowing Bitcoin entrepreneurs to get their Bitcoins on the books. With Raymond Chabot Grant Thornton, what we can do is, for example, provide services for these Bitcoin users to put their assets on the books when they want and to declare their taxes. If they feel like coming to us and getting help for declaring taxes, getting Bitcoin startups set up in Canada. We're launching the Blockhouse. The Blockhouse is a pretty much 10,000 square feet building downtown Montreal in the old port. So it's not unlike what the Bitcoin Embassy was. It's going to be more exclusive. It's going to be more difficult to get in as an expert. And there's going to be a higher level of filtering for the expertise. So you can't self-call yourself an expert and become a member of the Blockhouse. There's going to be a peer review system where other experts accept you or not. And this is also an attempt for us to solve the kind of charlatan problem in blockchain also. So have very strong peer validation of expertise. So that's pretty much what I'm involved with, right? So, I mean, really what it is for me is this institution is a way for me to push Bitcoin, not blockchain Bitcoin. There's no project right now that I'm working on which uses another blockchain. I don't discount the fact I might eventually work on a proof of concept on Ethereum, but we're pushing the Bitcoin blockchain as the main blockchain as a platform and as an asset. So that's it. I'm just working for Bitcoin, trying to make my Bitcoins worth more and trying to make your Bitcoins worth more and trying to get people to liberate themselves with Bitcoin. And any way that achieves this goal for me is something I have to pursue.
That's awesome. Awesome. Well, that's a great summary of everything. It sounds like you've been crazy busy for the past few years here. That's awesome. So one of the topics I wanted to cover with you, obviously I've seen you on social media and you've been quite involved in, I guess, having some firm beliefs when it comes to this Bitcoin scaling debate. And we're currently on the cusp of activating Segwit. So I believe that the current lock-in period will come to a close around August. Do you know August 8th, 10th, somewhere around there, I believe?
So yeah, I think it's about anywhere between the first 2 weeks of August. I mean, by the end of August, we'll have Segwit on the main chain if everything goes to plan. Yeah,
exactly. So it's been a long time coming. and it's been a struggle to get here. Can you, in your eyes, what do you see as the chain of events that caused us to get to where we are today? From say from when the code for Segwit was first released to today, what do you see as some of the main factors that maybe caused the holdup, and then some of the main factors that maybe made it possible to get to where we are, where we're just about to activate Segwit and it's just around the corner?
I think Segwit was incepted probably a little bit around the Montreal conference time. And then Hong Kong Scaling Bitcoin Conference in December 2015, Peter Wool announces Segwit, and immediately the expert community, everyone was like, this is great. And then it was announced, it was discovered by Luke Jr. we could do it as a soft fork. And then it was organized into a roadmap by the core development team. So there was a lot of stuff, right? So the idea of the core development team was we got a lot of work to do to optimize the blocks already, the block relay. So did a bunch of work with libsec 256K, block propagation, a bunch of stuff, check sequence verify, and some tools to allow the fee market to be more optimal, like RBF. And then you would bundle that with Segwit, which would enable second layer technologies to be better. And Segwit itself, we can talk a little bit more later about what Segwit itself does, but Segwit was a core piece of this core Bitcoin core roadmap. And a funny thing is that a bunch of the core developers had actually developed this a few techniques to coordinate activation. One of them is BIP9. So that was what the developers did to make it easier for miners to express their readiness for producing the blocks that the community required. And this is a signaling of readiness, but it was obviously hijacked by the miners as a way to vote. And then the narrative, there was this whole debate was a struggle for narratives. So who would control the narrative, right? I mean, scientifically, there's not a lot of debate. There are some debates, but I mean, at this point, the scientific community is pretty much unanimous around certain things and against certain things. It was a battle between Bitcoin Core's vision, which was seen as being some conservative dinosaurs that don't understand economics and that are purely scientific experts, and this was organized with the core roadmap, which was signed onto by 100 Bitcoin developers. And Segwit has subsequently been blocked by miners. Why? The official reason of the miners is that they're using Segwit as leverage to get other upgrade proposals passed. So they know that everyone wants Segwit, and they know they can block Segwit. So they thought, we're going to block Segwit until we get a firm commitment for block size increase. So again, this kind of committee mentality, this kind of decision-making structure that they thought they were in power. They thought that, we have the BIP9 thing, and BIP 141 Segwit is going to be deployed with BIP9. So ensued 2 years of negotiations and debates, which were extremely tiring. I remember going to the Satoshi Roundtable in Florida in 2016, and I can't really say what happened there because of the chatham rules. But let's just say for the first time ever, I shorted Bitcoin on the Sunday because I was so depressed, and I wasn't the only one who did that. I was so depressed of seeing a lot of the big companies, the big Bitcoin companies, the huge VC-backed companies would go into little rooms, and they would get some developers, and they would get a developer and a miner, and they would come to a decision, and they would announce that the decision to the group of other people, and it was super weird, and felt like a Bilderberg. So that went on for a really, really long time. There was a lot of factors that went into this, and I mean, it's hard to digest. It's hard to do a post-mortem when it's so fresh. I'm sure many books will be written, but there's a lot of factors. The narrative shift to let's fire core, let's fire Bitcoin core. At the Bitcoin Satoshi Roundtable in Florida, a huge Bitcoin entrepreneur stood up and faced the audience of 50 Bitcoin people and announced that they were going to fire Bitcoin Core. And then this was greeted by cheers from other prominent CEOs. And this was like, super dystopian to me. I was like, what are they doing? And they were even bullying some of the developers. It was not nice. So those CEOs don't, in my mind, I think a lot of people know who they are, but I won't name them. But those CEOs definitely got for doing that. My trust in them went down severely. So yeah, so they seemed like we were not going to get Segwit. But then something came along, and it was Shaolin Fry published a paper and a code for BIP148, the user-activated soft fork. And this is when really everything kind of changed for me in this debate, because I was kind of a passive person getting feedback from my users and active on Slack channels and forums, but not on Twitter and not that much on public forums. But then I was like, so I am kind of I represent the constituency of users. This was always my pitch, right? I represent the end user, and the concerns I bring to the table are that of the anonymous person buying Bitcoin at an ATM, which is not represented here by the customers of the other companies. This was meant for me, right? The user movement, I was destined for that. I was already the voice of users. So I looked a lot into that, and it got me into researching how Bitcoin works at the consensus level, which is, forks had already been I kind of understood how forks worked, but before BIP148, I did not understand exactly what the role of nodes were. So I researched a lot, and it seemed to me like the user-activated soft fork was the way that protocol changes to Bitcoin were supposed to be made. So the way that movement emerged was, first there was Shaolin Fry who posted that, and then a bunch of people started talking on the core Slack. Some of them are well known, like Samson Mao, Rodolfo Novak, Mr. Hodl, Steve, Alp, the alpaca, and a bunch of the usual suspects. We created a core Slack channel, a private Slack channel for UASF, and we said, okay, so Shaolin Fry just created this code. Let's build some momentum around that. And it was very important. The Bitcoin developers did not want to support BIP148. They did not want to support BIP148 because it was BIP148. It's not their job to lobby users for certain activation methods. Their job is to code what users want and what miners want, and to suggest it to the community to be adopted, but not to lobby for it. And we were told by core developers, if this is to be something that works, it needs to have users and businesses that are very vocal, because you can't signal with BIP148 USF. You can't vote. So a lot of people think you look at the node count and that's what matters. That's not what matters. What matters is what those nodes are used for, right? So if you're a random guy running 10 BIP148 nodes, it doesn't make any difference. But if you're a business which accepts Bitcoin for bill payments like mine, or for anything, the choice of your node is the weight of how much fiat will go in and out of, basically as an economic node whose job is to, one, economic nodes, just for definition, are just Bitcoin nodes that have a disproportionate influence over the market, in the sense that John's node is his Bitcoin, and my node is the Bitcoin of tens of thousands of users which pay me each year to pay their bills, right? So the role of economic nodes, and I would start thinking about, like, what can I do? Because it's always the miners, and it's always the devs, and it's always Coinbase, blockchain.info, calling the shots, and Bitfury. So what can we do as small grassroots business owners that we can run those nodes? So this is something that we can do right now, and that's the way that we express our preference for protocol upgrades, as smaller economic nodes that don't necessarily get a seat next to Brian Armstrong of Coinbase at those secret meetings. We needed to create a momentum around that. So I bought the website domain, and we organized a Slack group. And by the way, the private Slack channel didn't really last for long. It all became public after a little while. We weren't really sure at that time. It was in February, so we didn't really know who to trust, basically, with organizing this thing. we were about 20 people. I mean, you look at the list of people there, they're the same people with the hats on Twitter, basically. So we said as businesses, listen, we, the users, pay you, the miner, with inflation. Every year, my Bitcoins get diluted by you guys, right? And I'm allowing you to dilute my shares of Bitcoin every single 10-minute block. And not only that, I'm paying you transaction fees. And I'm pretty sure in the white paper it says that your job is to order transactions chronologically using a computationally expensive hashing function so that we always know which is the longest chain according to the valid rules. But there is no mention in the white paper of you voting for the rules. In fact, as the way that I see it as a node on the network, you're feeding me a block, and I'm validating the block. And if I decide that block is valid, I will propagate it, and I will consider the transactions in it as being on the blockchain. So the miners don't make the rules. The users make the rules, and the users tell the miners, this is the kind of block I want you to create. And we created the coordination activation of BIP9 in order for there to be no chain split and for everything to go smoothly. And then when the narrative started shifting from miners control everything, miners make the rules, a lot of people got behind that. And as defender of the users, I got really, really, really motivated to put all my projects on hold. So for the past 4 or 5 months, I've been trying to educate people about BIP148, about the role of different nodes in the network, how mining works. I did 10 presentations, wrote a lot of blog posts, and been very active on Twitter and social media. So the idea was that we will run those nodes and make it unprofitable for miners to not mine BIP148. And to put them in front of a dilemma, which is one, you can act irrationally, thereby dispelling the myth of the rational profit-seeking miner, and then we would know that they have ulterior motives that are not profit, which is something that I suspect. Two, we would game theory-wise, if they wouldn't up on our chain, it's either because they're trying to split Bitcoin out of spite. And I had the intention of having people's. My goal was to get people to put their cards on the table. I was very tired of the political mind games. We've been talking. Someone that also talks a lot about that is Eric Lombroso. So you can see his Twitter feed. So just tired of all the politics and just put the cards on the table. It felt for 2 years as if we're playing poker, and we're just at the river card, and we're just bluffing each other on the pot. At some point you just need to say like, okay, I call. Like let's show each other's cards. So BIP148 was like us kind of calling the bluff of the miners. So it worked.
So when BIP148 was first kind of thrust onto the scene, we started to see this flurry of activity around the New York agreement, which was Barry Silbert bringing together a lot of businesses and miners to agree on first activating Segwit and then going to a 2 megabyte hard fork at some point down the road. What do you see as having more pull as far as causing the actual activation of Segwit here?
Right. Okay. So let's dissect a little bit what the New York agreement was and how that came about. So first observation is that this is an agreement amongst a long line of agreements which have never led to anything. So there have been New York style agreements, I think about 8 or 9 that were very well publicized. So let's put that in context, right? That is it's a long line of similar agreements. So BIP148, the concept of BIP148 was I'll give you an analogy, right? Imagine a game of chicken between 2 cars. And it was a test of resolve and a test of commitment, which also explains the USF hats and USF handles. So if you're in a game of chicken between 2 cars, and then imagine on one car you have these businessmen miners with a very tight profit margin, supposedly that are trying to pay their electricity bills and running a business. And in the other car of the chicken game, you got these radical Bitcoin decentralists that will not compromise anything and that would some of them put their lives on the line for the long-term success of Bitcoin. And you got these two cars approaching each other. And then the USF car, we decided, you know, screw it. We're going to chug a bottle of whiskey. We're going to throw it out the door. We're going to, you know, take me, you know, kind of attitude. And then on the other car, you got the profitable businessman. And then the idea was that they will swerve at the last minute, right? So we will show that we will not swerve, and we will show the utmost resolve that we will create, we will fork. And if the miners, you don't go on our chain, we will put you in a situation where you are creating a split in the network. So BIP148 was putting the miners in a position to split or not split the chain. So BIP148 did not necessarily split. It was the miners after that deciding not to mine the profitable chain that would split Bitcoin. From a strategic point of view, in a business where there's a lot of egos and there's a lot of reputations on the line, Jihan's reputation was extremely on the line. Himself as an individual has an enormous, all his skin is in his position. We did not leave an honorable exit to our opponent in this scenario. It was kind of a total victory outcome we were looking for, where we would get the miners to submit to the will of the users to make a point, right? It was ideological it was more ideological than practical in a sense. Whereas you look at NYA, and these are negotiators, these are business people that are used to traditional deals and traditional diplomacy. And I do credit the NYA for providing a face-saving out to the miners, but it's essentially what it is. So in order to really understand that, you look at how NYA was supposed to be activated is a new client, BTC1, which would have bundled Segwit and the increase. So this was the face-saving compromise for the miners, which got what they want, which was the increase. But because of BIP148 actually got momentum after the NYA, because the users were not happy with not being involved in that decision, right away, a Bitcoin Core developer developed BIP91, which made the NYA potentially compatible with BIP148. So when this was released, I was kind of relieved, because okay, so if BIP91 works, which is BIP91 is the same thing as BIP148 in the sense that BIP148 makes that nodes will orphan non-Segwit signaling blocks, and BIP91 means that miners will orphan non-Bit1 signaling blocks. So miners should actually have run BIP148. It would have been actually easier for them. But regardless, BIP9. So as the deadline happened for BTC1, there's a lot of problems with the client, a lot of questioning of the development method, the closed development method, a lot of questioning also about having Bitcoin Core devs criticizing bugs in the client and having their questions unanswered. And the deadline was not going to be met, it seemed. So miners started to signal for BIP91. Some say they were running BTC1. I suspect a lot of them were running Bitcoin Core and BIP91. Can't really know. But BIP91, the only reason I think miners chose BIP91 over BIP148 was that BIP148 was associated to like an anti-miner movement, and BIP91 was more of a compatible industry initiative, or at least compatible with the industry initiative. So we created this urge. We created an incoming split, and Barry Silbert gave a way out to the miners to signal Segwit.
So I've got a question here. So then if people signal BIP91 and it's now active, in that case, they can be running Core with a BIP91 patch, right? So they don't have to be running BTC1, the New York Agreement, I guess, release or software that would enact the 2 megabyte hard fork down the road. So does that mean that the Segwit portion and the 2 megabyte hard fork portion, are they tied together in any way, shape, or form? Or is it possible that we've just gotten essentially activated Segwit in a couple short weeks here, and 2 megabyte is not even really enforceable? Is that the case?
From a Bitcoin protocol consensus level, they are not. bundled. They're not bundled. From a political community agreement, people pledged to bundle, and some of them knowingly were going to deceive miners and not hard fork. They're only bundled insofar as if you run BTC1, which is the client which bundles Segwit and the 2x together. Bitcoin Core does not intend to do a hard fork, so that means that Bitcoin Core, if you're running Bitcoin Core and a BIP91 patch or BIP148 client, which is a fork of Bitcoin Core, but still compatible with the Bitcoin Core consensus rules, as far as Segwit is concerned, then you won't be hard forking. Like, you as a user won't be hard forking if you're not running a wallet that is BTC1 or fork compliant. So the problem with this is that the bundle is not agreed upon. Like, there's no agreement with the hard fork. That's bullshit. Like, there's no community agreement on that. There was a business agreement to run the 2x part. But then I start to look at, okay, so I got really interested in how to split BIP148 coins. I got really interested in that, and I got really interested in how to split Bitcoin Cash, and I got really interested in how users were gonna interact with this fork. I'm always from the point of view of the user, and there is not a single wallet out there that is BTC1 compliant.
What I'm curious about is since I think some of the more vocal people who are huge advocates of increasing the block size, it seems like they've realized that it looks like Segwit and the 2 megabyte hard fork are not at all bundled, and Segwit, now that it's happening, there's users will then decide if they want to do the 2 megabyte hard fork, because it was an agreement on paper, but it doesn't mean it's an agreement in the code. Now, because of this, we've seen something called Bitcoin Cash pop up, and that's essentially, I believe, via BTC is championing it, but we've also seen Bitmain get behind it. We've seen Roger Ver pumping that, amongst others, and we've seen a futures market develop on via BTC. I believe just via BTC right now, but we have other people that said they'll list it as an altcoin, I believe, for the most part. So that being said, just for anybody watching who doesn't know what Bitcoin Cash is, it's essentially it's kind of a fork of Bitcoin. Anybody holding Bitcoin will have Bitcoin Cash if and when it does launch. It's slated for August 1st right now, but there's a futures market of people essentially buying Bitcoin Cash for what they perceive it to be valued at, and it's been sitting around 0.15 Bitcoin or less. At some point it did drop below 0.1 Bitcoin. So I mean, what are your thoughts on Bitcoin Cash? Is it an altcoin? Is it a fork of Bitcoin? Is it true Bitcoin? I obviously it's pretty clear that you don't think that. And is it even a threat, or is this actually a positive thing that people who want larger blocks and want to go that route can go off and do their own thing?
Right. So Bitcoin Cash originated as the user-activated hard fork contingency plan of Bitmain. So that's the inception of Bitcoin Cash. So because the fact that the legacy chain was at a risk of reorg, and I won't go into all those details now, but because of the fact that the legacy chain was at a risk of a reorg in case of BIP 148, Bitmain decided to propose a client that would hard fork the legacy chain, protecting users that did not want to go on BIP 148 from having the transactions at a risk of reorg. Interestingly enough, okay, so I will name the people who are pushing Bitcoin, Bitcoin Cash. I mean, it is Jian Wu and Roger Ver. Roger Ver being responsible in the group for the Bitcoin business and the acceptance and validation with his Bitcoin.com resources and assets, and Jian with the mining community. So interestingly enough, I saw an interview of Jian in Korean, and I put a bounty for a translation, and I got a translation. And Jihan clearly states that he's uncomfortable with Bitcoin Cash, because he was accused of, I think in the question, he was accused of betraying Bitcoin or something. And he basically said Bitcoin Cash was our backup plan. And, you know, we what he says is we invested in via BTC, but they just took the thing to like the next level. And like, you know, we just like, this is out of our hands now. It kind of, it was almost like we created this thing that got out of control, and they don't seem very at ease, like he didn't seem very at ease with Bitcoin Cash. So what is Bitcoin Cash? Bitcoin Cash is an altcoin which starts instead of a new Genesis block with the balances of Bitcoin users. This has been done hundreds of times, perhaps thousands of times. Perhaps so many devs have done a fork with a balance that we can't even know or count. So it is an altcoin that starts with a balance of bit like clams, right? But this altcoin will not have Segwit and will not have replaced by fee. And this altcoin is only tradable so far via BTC. And the way that you access your altcoins, you're free. It's essentially, it's a scam. Okay, I'm just gonna say it. Like Bitcoin Cash is a scam. It's a scam for people to dump, to create money out of thin air and take the momentum of this. There is a legit community of like really hardcore anti-Blockstream, anti-Segwit user base. I don't know why they are, but it exists. I think it's a clever way to scam those people and to kind of exit from all of this. I see this happen many times before with multiple scams. It just seems to me like a huge pump and dump, and it's going to go to zero because like it is not, it's never ever gonna become Bitcoin. Like no exchange will ever run that other than Rogers exchanges and via BTC's exchanges. So it is going to be an altcoin, and the use of Bitcoin in the name I think is duplicitous and malicious. The confusion surrounding it is purposeful. And at this point, I would recommend users, and I never do this, but at this point, if you want to split, I would recommend using an exchange. I never do that, but so the trade-off is like, do you really want to split that much? So Bills, for example, Bills accepts Bitcoin payments from clients, and I was wondering like, what am I going to do? Like, should I give them back the BTCC or the Bitcoin Cash or whatever? And thinking about how risky splitting is, I'm going to be deciding myself whether or not I split the coins that my clients send me. Mm-hmm. I may not. I may decide to split them depending on my risk preference as a user. And in the case I am able to successfully split the BCC, I will immediately sell them for Bitcoin, and I will keep the profits. I will keep the profits. My business will keep your BCC, dump them, and sell them and keep the profit. And I'm in my policy, which I've just announced on Twitter, and which I said to my users, if you request the equivalent of BTC back from so if you use me as a service to split your coins, I'll keep an 80% fee on the BCC. So if you send me like 1 Bitcoin and 1 BCC is worth 0.1 Bitcoin, I'm gonna try to get 0.1 Bitcoin for me, which is my reward for having risked my coins to split. And if you want that, you can ask me, you can send me an email upon request. I'll send some of you. I was thinking about taking an 80% or 75%, maybe 50% haircut. I don't know. I'll see. So I don't think businesses should be, and this is different than businesses who are holding funds on behalf of users. If you're holding funds on behalf of users, it's your decision whether or not to split it for your users. I mean, I would, honestly, if I was an exchange, I would tell users just withdraw them and split them. But
yeah, so essentially, you're trying to discourage users from.
Oh yeah.
Basically, it's just a way of you not having to deal with it because you don't want to have to be splitting this and dealing with all the risk associated with that.
Yeah, really not. And I don't think, I mean, the only reason I would want to split it is to make the price of that shit go down. Sorry for the swearing. I would want to siphon as much money from those people. I would want to siphon as many Bitcoins from the people that are buying this thing, which are on the opposite, which are my opponents in a way. So yeah, it's just getting resources away from them and dumping it and perhaps getting a little bit of reward for my USF efforts, I guess. But I mean, it's a non-event. It's
funny. The one thing I wanted to highlight here is with Segwit 2x and now Bitcoin Cash is the 2x part of Segwit 2x. Is that even necessary now? Because it kind of seems like most of the people that were really pushing for this 2 megabyte increase have now gone with this Bitcoin Cash thing, which will it seems like be mostly reliant on just block size increases for capacity increases. So how many people do you think, if they're going to go with Bitcoin Cash and try to pump that project, are they going to stick around and care about the 2 megabyte hard fork anymore? Are there still people, like, how many people do you think were just going along with the New York agreement in order to get Segwit versus actually caring about the hard fork?
That's an excellent question, and we're at a point in Bitcoin where it's so absurd, but it's so interesting at the same time. So if we have a Segwit-enabled Bitcoin Core maintained Bitcoin, we also with Segwit 2x would have Segwit-enabled the Jeff Garzig maintained Bitcoin. Basically, it's Bitcoin Unlimited, right? It's just a new brand. It is Bitcoin, kind of the same thing with Roger Ver and Wu behind it. So why do we have this weird one in the middle, this 2x, which obviously, as you say, is clearly a compromise between the two? Is because we all compromised with two people, with Jihan and Roger, and their sphere of influence and the legit or not so legit community around them. But these were the two people with which this compromise was made. And if these two people, and via BTC as well, because they had more than 5% of the hash power, so they also were uniquely able to block Segwit, and Bitmain obviously controlled the BTC top and pool and another one. So now that these people are going with Bitcoin Cash, we have Segwit, this compromise, what's it for? And I would even go further than that. I mean, why not, at this point, why not move to Ethereum or Litecoin or other coins? I mean, we got Bitcoin with Segwit. If you don't want Segwit, I don't know why you would want Segwit, but if you don't want Segwit, if you don't want to use Segwit, you can still not use Segwit on Bitcoin. If you don't want your fellow Bitcoiners to have Segwit, get the hell out of here. Honestly, just go to Bitcoin Cash. I'm super happy. I'm actually the best outcome. The only bad outcome of this is that Roger was smart enough to buy Bitcoin.com and is able to make people lose money with his PR machine. He is able to tell people that Bitcoin Cash is Bitcoin and subsequently make them lose funds. He's able to disrupt. He can disrupt Bitcoin. He still has the resources to spite the face, by cutting off his nose. So that's kind of negative because he will do that, I think.
I think the one thing that's nice about not nice, it's unfortunate that he has Bitcoin.com, but I did an interview with Vortex from World Crypto Network, and he said, how often nowadays do you go to internet.com? And he says down the road, people won't be going to Bitcoin.com once it's clear that Bitcoin is a protocol as opposed to a company or a central entity. Right. And so I guess down the road, yeah, right now it's unfortunate because people don't know. But down the road, whoever owns Bitcoin.com, it won't be as much of an issue. I think Vortex had a very good point on that.
He did, and they don't go to Bitcoin.org either. I mean, the users, they go to their local Bitcoin ATM operator and their local Bitcoin broker and their local Bitcoin meetup. So, every single business in Canada that I know of has done we did this letter against Bitcoin Unlimited. So clearly, Bitcoin Cash falls squarely into the same category. So, as far as every ATM operator, Bitcoin person in Canada, I think every business will just be saying like, this is for example, Bitcoin Brains and some other Canadian guys that just said like, Coin Cards, I think said, BTC Cash is not an event. We won't even, it's just not there. So if you send me BTC Cash, if you send me Bitcoin Cash, my node's just not even gonna.
Yeah,
like,
and
it's not gonna show up on my wallet, so.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of exchanges have come out and said either they're not supporting, or if it does actually fork and become an actual coin, they're going to be obviously listing it as an altcoin. So, so as far as the end user is concerned, what do you see as their options? Like, do you see ignore, split? Is there any? Obviously, the options to split are yet to be seen and tested. But if there's somebody that does want to split down the line, what do you recommend? Do they leave them somewhere? Do they take them off exchanges? Is there a series of steps that you would recommend, or wait and see? What are your thoughts there?
Right. So 99% of users will not split to Bitcoin Cash, either because a lot of it is in cold storage. And if you put stuff in cold storage, you're not going to remove it to put it in some sketchy software that unsigned by unknown developers. And a lot of the users don't know what Bitcoin is. They just need these credits that allow them to buy stuff on the internet. These digits. So I don't think people are. The danger is all the coins that are held on exchanges, and exchanges will want this. So like exchanges deciding to split Bitcoin Cash for me was a terrible decision, and I'm really disappointed because they are making this non-event into an event. Just going kind of with the wave of other exchanges, and it's snowballing. So users will not split. If users that want to split, I would recommend using an exchange you trust, and this is a one-time recommendation only. And if you don't, you may want to split yourself. That's very risky. I would say just don't even think about it. Like if you're not radically motivated against Segwit, there is no reason you would risk your Bitcoins for meager profits, unless you're like me and you know what you're doing, and you have a risk moderation mitigation policy and stuff like that. I would say generally just ignore this and just enjoy the price rise of Bitcoin that will follow Segwit activation and go on vacation.
Yeah, that's fair. So I'm gonna kind of get past the scaling and the noise and everything, and I wanted to get a couple final thoughts from you. Moving on from here, now that it looks like Segwit will be active by mid to late August, what excites you about the future for Bitcoin? Where do you see this activation of Segwit taking us, and what does it enable that excites you?
Everything. So the first thing that excites me is this common awareness of how Bitcoin works, which we didn't know how Bitcoin worked before. We still don't really know, but we know a lot more today how Bitcoin works, and how changes are activated and so forth. We also know from a game theory standpoint, many things have been tried and failed, so we can validate. So this is very interesting from a research standpoint. And going forward, these debates will be much shorter, as we already know what has failed. Regarding and also what excites me is I'm quite happy with people taking sides. I am happy with that. I'm happy with people revealing their true values and ethics over the last 2 years. I mean, information is better for everyone. And from the UASF Pro Segwit camp, I feel a fellowship very strongly with my fellow advocates. Not necessarily UASF or Bitcoin Core people, but the people that weren't strongly in opposition to my views and that kind of supported me. I feel a very strong bond and fellowship towards those people, and so do they. And at many conferences since USF had started, it's a common kind of secret handshake type of thing. Like, yeah, I believe in the same decentralization ethos as you, and I'm willing to show it. So that's great. I think the Bitcoin community is much more united. Ironically, I would rather have small united clusters than a big kumbaya. It's much more productive for working in the future. So also in terms of the macro positioning of Bitcoin and this thing that's been used by altcoins and by banks as kind of like Bitcoin doesn't scale. The narrative of Bitcoin is very strong, is very positive. There aren't a lot of arguments against Bitcoin left. There are some, but they're not that many as compared to a few years ago. So from a community and business perspective, Bitcoin is in a really good shape. I think that I almost never talk about price, but I think the price of Bitcoin will increase with all of this. I think more businesses will be able to self-fund, as mine has. just by sitting on coins and watching the price rise, and rely less and less on VCs. I hope there's another bubble that will allow people to build businesses on Bitcoin without VCs. From a technical standpoint, what I'm excited about is the immediate relief on transaction fees, and that Segwit would enable. After a few months, I think we'll have a decent proportion of transactions which are Segwit transactions, and this will. My business had, at the height of the spam, my business had been paying multiple tens of thousands of dollars a year in Bitcoin transaction fees. With the average of, and I was doing priority fees, so with the average of like $250 US that we were seeing at the height of the spam, it's welcome relief to have the spam ended also. I'm extremely excited, of course, about the Lightning Network, which is already on the Bitcoin testnet and some even on the mainnet. I've seen amazing wallets with amazing UI, so of Lightning Network, where you can have a big yellow Lightning button or a big blue Bitcoin button and choose to open channels, and it's all very intuitive and very great. And I'm excited for wallets to do Lightning networks between their users and each other by default. So I would love to see a consortium of wallets get into a huge Lightning network with multiple hubs, which are wallets and exchanges, and have unlimited transactions on Bitcoin. I'm excited about the general layer 2 scaling opportunities that we have here. I'm also excited about many other things, because passing Segwit allows also or institutionalizes the fact that we can now do soft forks at the same time, so deploy more features to Bitcoin. Segwit was a precondition to the rest of the roadmap, which includes other things that people don't know about, like Schnorr signatures. Schnorr signatures will reduce by half the size of Bitcoin transactions, thus, all things being equal, the fees. Schnorr signatures and masked, which is also another fork or soft fork, I'm not sure. But from what I understand, those things allow smart contracts in Bitcoin, such as decentralized payment forwarding, which is other than multi-signature and other than assets like colored coins or on Ethereum ERC20, which is the only smart contract that currently is in use, like payment forwards, like in Ethereum, that's why Ethereum is super useful. You send money there and it splits. In Bitcoin, you can't do that. And so from what I understand, Schnorr and some of the other kind of crypto stuff that Segwit enables will be able to do that. What else would Segwit do? I don't know. I mean, I'm excited about everything. I mean, just about new changes, new features, communities united.
It seems like this was really one of the big stumbling blocks that we had to get past to really start to see some exponential growth.
Oh yeah. And just survival of Bitcoin. I mean, the reason why I got genuinely scared for the first time with like this thing going on that Bitcoin I actually thought at some point that Bitcoin Unlimited would split, and I got really scared for the first time ever. And now I'm not scared. I'm grateful. And it's impossible to be angry and fearful if you're grateful. I'm just grateful to all of the community, and everybody is. It's a big party. And it was the biggest challenge. Bitcoin can't be destroyed from the outside. I mean, it's a bold claim, right? But I mean, I don't think it can be destroyed by outside forces. I think it can only be destroyed from within. And this was kind of a make it or break it moment where the community could have destroyed itself. And Roger will not agree with me, but it's over. We won. Segwit won. The miners got to save face a little bit, and we can just all move forward. So, I'm so bullish. Like I'm so stoked.
That's awesome. That's great to hear.
Yeah, on Bitcoin and on life. I'm sure a lot of Bitcoiners just feel generally more happy in the last week. I don't know about you, Benny, but I just feel just uplifted.
Yeah, it's nice because it's just been exhausting the past couple of years. So it's nice to see a path forward forming, and it'll be nice not to hear about this drama every day. I know there'll be other things in the future, but it is nice to have this. It's pretty much done and over with.
And finally, what I'm excited about with Segwit is that when I went to when I met some of the cypherpunks at the Bitcoin roundtable. We were talking about, we should be focused on privacy now, because privacy has a shorter window of political acceptability. And as the stakeholders of Bitcoin widen and consensus becomes harder, it becomes harder to block consensus. So the privacy improvements that we want should have been done in 2015. I even suspected the stalling to be specifically aimed at delaying privacy improvements. That's kind of my conspiracy theory hat there, but I don't know. So we have a lot of work to do regarding confidential transactions and stuff like that, Tumblebit. So that's what excites me as well, is that we can finally focus on the real danger to Bitcoin's core value proposition, which is anonymity and decentralization.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Francis, I want to thank you so much for coming on. I'm going to ask you one final question. I usually ask this of my guests before we start to wrap up. If you could please describe what Bitcoin represents to you.
So Bitcoin is my mission. Bitcoin, I have never stopped thinking about Bitcoin for the past 4 years, almost every waking moment. And it's clearly, I'll quote Jameson Lopp on this, my exit strategy for Bitcoin is death, which means that there's no plan in which I will not work on Bitcoin for at least the next decade. So it represents for me what I was looking for in social change, which is dramatic opt-out, opt-in type of change. Change driven by black swans. It represents spontaneous order, and it's completely and validates my life philosophy and the way that I view innovation and the way that I view just human nature and human social relationships. Bitcoin validated those ideas that were in theory for me. Bitcoin vindicates me and vindicates my personal philosophy. Bitcoin is a tool. It is a gift that I'm giving to other people. I am constantly giving the gift of Bitcoin to everyone around me. I am kind of I'm the Bitcoin father of tens of thousands of people, which is my biggest pride and joy, which means that they bought their first Bitcoin from me, or I installed their first wallet. This creates it's very fulfilling thing to have in your head. Bitcoin is a tool for liberation. It's a tool for economic revolutions, and Bitcoin is the great redeemer of globalization, I think. So it's the missing piece in the world has gotten better consistently over time because of globalization and because of open trade and all of that. And Bitcoin is the great equalizer. Bitcoin destroys corruption, destroys barriers to entry. It really removes all those artificial privileges, that cronyism that is wrong with capitalism and globalization. It is the answer to many problems. And also, it is a never-ending source of self-discovery and curiosity. And it is intellectually the most stimulating thing that I've ever encountered. And that's enough.
That's fantastic. I love everything you were saying there. So once again, Francis, I can't thank you enough for being on. Quickly before we wrap up, can you just tell everybody where they can find you, where they can find your current project that you're working on?
Yeah. So if you're Canadian and you want to encourage what I'm about and what we do, start paying your bills with Bitcoin. I know you want to hold your Bitcoins, but start paying your bills with Bitcoin on Bills, BYLLS.com. So that's the name of my service. The company operating the service and which does the technology. So we're a software development and financial services operations company. We do this for other people as well in other countries, Satoshiportal.com. My main project right now is Catallaxy.com. So check that out. If you're in Canada, just reach out to us. We're hiring. The idea is to make it rain on the community. So we did get a lot of money, and we don't give perks. We give contracts for consultants and for developers. We give money and we pay well. So if you want to get hired either as a consultant, as a speaker, as a dev, if you are able to install Trezor and explain to someone how to do a backup, you are an expert in Bitcoin usability, and you are worth hundreds of dollars an hour. Contact us. You can be part of the barrier to entry to being a contributor is high, but not high enough so that people like you, for example, are definitely, in my mind, the experts I'm looking for are the guys who are on social media and who know everything about Bitcoin. I'm not looking for the Deloitte's experts. I'm looking for the real grassroots experts there. So check us out and apply, contact me. There's room for everyone to make at least a little bit of money off of what we're doing, I think. And specifically, if you share the same values, this helps a lot. Just follow me on Twitter at Francis Pouliot _. So follow me there. On Reddit as well. That's it, right? And you can always write to me. You can always write to me at francis@satoshiportal.com for anything, and I will answer to you.
Awesome. I will link to all of that down below. Francis, once again, thank you so much for being on. I always love to talk to people in the community, and this interview was particularly great because you're a fellow Canadian. So it's great to talk to somebody. We're a little bit across the country from each other, but it is still nice to talk to another Bitcoin enthusiast in Canada. Yeah, I will link to everything. If you guys enjoyed this, please go and check out all of Francis's projects. And thank you guys so much for watching the BTC sessions. I'll see you guys next time. I will have links to everything Francis related in the show notes. Please don't forget to hit like and subscribe, drop a tip if you're able to, and share this video. I will see you guys next time on the BTC sessions.